Thank you.
So Barb Smith is here. So Barb Smith Varclova is a specialized trauma therapist focusing on complex PTSD and related conditions like eating disorders, addiction, borderline personality disorder, disassociation, and anxiety. Her journey into understanding the mind began 3 decades ago as she sought solutions for her own challenges. Over the years, Barb Smith has completed a range of training programs, starting with the Silva method of mind control, accumulator, principles of life, NLP, clinical and pastoral counseling, CBT, One Brain, regression hypnotherapy, and concluding with rapid transformation therapy. She has also explored unconventional modalities like Reiki, tarot, and energy work with crystals, wood, and plants. Currently, Bob Smith finds great success working with clients dealing with complex PTSD and BPD through her program, Trauma Response Reprogramming, witnessing significant life changes in just a few months. She also offers mentoring and education for therapists and coaches who are transitioning from trauma informed to trauma recovery specialists through her course Complex PTSD Blueprint for Therapists and Coaches. Thank you so much, Bar Smith. Yes, you can occupy the stage.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm really glad to be here. Apologize for backset. It's supposed to be opposite way. I don't know what technology doing, but as Melinda said, my name is Barb Smith Varclova, and I am saying hello from Scotland in this moment. It's really great to be here, and all speeches so far are amazing. I really enjoyed them, and my talk will, in some ways, kind of align or continue and deepen the speech of the Holly. So that's a great timing that we actually have our presentation after each other. My interest in how mind's working and how we can actually um, live our life to full started really more than 30 years ago when I was diagnosed with the chronic fatigue syndrome. And I was 17 years old in that time. And I was told by the doctors they don't know what to do with that. It was one of the fresh diagnoses in that time. And my life consists from lying in the bed and having the headaches and joint pain. And some days my daily achievement will be get to the toilet. So it was very unpleasant time in my life. And because I was told that it's cannot be helped, I will start looking on some other ways how to actually recover. And I was very lucky because the one of the first things which I found was Silva method of control mind. And that time I was taught by Dragan Vujovic, which is one of the last people who was trained directly by Jose Silva. And that's completely changed my view on how our mind and body is working. And I was able to recover from chronic fatigue syndrome and start recovering from other, how I call it, physical manifestation of trauma, and even recognize that my childhood was actually very traumatic. I grew up in communism era, and my father was dissident. My mom had the accident when I was a child, and I have the like a very manipulative, sociopathic grandmother. So the relationship was even more complicated than it could be. And that led me to learning what I could find everywhere and start finding the ways how we can actually recover and what is that really base of it and how we can do it. And I find out that the most of techniques and and things focusing on how we can manage our trauma responses, and also that trauma responses has more people than we would expect, or than many things which people don't even realizing that they actually are trauma responses. So all these women who are living in people pleasing and just do everything for others and don't do anything for themselves, that's trauma response. All women who are becoming workaholics, but yet still feel like imposters, working very hard, but inside doesn't feel that they are worthy and they deserve the success they have. That's trauma responses. All these women who sacrifice their health for their families, that's trauma responses. Or women who are angry and have the outburst of anger and are classified there, is hard to be with them and work with them, and sometimes they would be even labeled that they have borderline personality disorders. Those are trauma responses. So I kind of find out that um, more than a small amount of people who are diagnosed with complex PTSD actually have complex PTSD, that it's actually very wide range of people, and the range of symptoms, how we can see them in lives, it's very wide. So I start to focus on how to change that, how to actually help people. When I find a way how to help myself, and people start coming to me in different position, even when I work in IT industry and in commercial, and I would always get some team which doesn't work, and not because people didn't work hard enough, but because of their mental health issues, because of they struggle to cooperate, their struggle to be open and vulnerable. And after every that story, if it was women or men, was some way of abuse and neglect, mental, emotional, physical, sexual. And I find out that actually with complex PTSD suffering vast majority of population. It's a trauma which is passing on from those who survived the wars and doesn't believe that they survived, so their children has to be raised hard. All those who grew up in poverty and different phases of the last century and collapses. All those who grow up in racial or cultural discrimination, all those who grow up in discrimination against the gender or sexuality. So that's enormous amount of people who suffer with trauma, and most of them not getting the help, and most of them are told that they need to learn to live with the responses, that they have to learn to manage. And a great example is that learn to manage anger, and anger is not possible to manage. And people which suffer with anger as a trauma response, they end up in prisons because they sometimes hurt somebody even they don't want to. And we can see how women become aggressive on their children because they just trigger their own childhood trauma. They feel overwhelmed, they don't know where it is coming from. And when I look at that, and when I start working with people, I find out that we often speak about techniques how to calm mind, and a lot of people would say, no, I cannot even meditate, I'm so overwhelmed, my mind's running as on the hamster wheel. And yes, because when we are on the high alert, on survival mode, we cannot even do that. When people cannot sleep, so they are so tired that they cannot even think, that is really hard for them to sit down with coaches and go through the things. And they would say, no, I can consciously make it all understand that, but I still don't understand why I'm not doing it, why I'm procrastinating, why I cannot communicate with my colleagues, why I'm afraid to stand up in front of others and speak up for my ideas, why I cannot walk out on abusive partner, why I cannot just be myself. And when we ask them who you really are, the answer very often is, I really don't know who I am. Because when we're living in survival mode, when we're living in a reaction from the childhood trauma, we living in reactions, we not living life who we are, who we really are, what is our purpose, what we want in life. And so I went to, as you will see, everything, everywhere, look around and tested and tried and work with people. And in the end, I find out that we all have the parts in us which we need, which are the how we function, how we have. And I'm not speaking about inner child. We all have inner child, but that would be topic speech all itself. But we have the parts as which are inner strength, self-love, intuition, knowledge, and purpose. And these parts we all have, and we all need them working all together in full function to be able to be and living in present moment and be this fully functional adults and live our life in fully and not respond from trauma responses. And in this, I choose the one thing which I think that because I see it, and in the end, I am finding in every single person I working with child trauma, is that we are disconnected or so suppress our inner strength. Not that willpower of doing things, not the power of surviving, but that inner strength which making us feel safe, that inner strength which making us knowing where are our boundaries, that inner strength which going and people feel it from us and respect us, and we have it in our posture, in our speaking way, and we are strong inside, calm, strong inner strength. I always describe it as the knight on the white horse, which coming to save us when we are afraid if somebody going over our boundaries. And what we do as the children when we have the trauma, and trauma can be, as I said, like many things. The important is that if we get afraid as the children and we are not console and we cannot express our anger, we cannot express ourselves, what we do naturally is that we will put it in, we will start be smaller and smaller, and in the end we will put it inside. And but because it's a knight on the white horse, he has the sword, and that sword keep working because he's still working that anger. He still will come every moment when we will be afraid that anger will come up. Every moment when we walk to the boss office and cannot speak because we have tightened neck, and cannot even say the word that we will want to raise, or somebody doing something else. Every time when we standing in front of the class and struggling to speak. Every time when we cannot say our partner that we are not accepting their behavior. Every time that anger will come, but stay inside. So we hurting ourselves by that. And we think about ourselves that we are weak, that we are not worthy, we don't deserve, and many things like that. But what we can do, is and everybody can do it. Everybody can do it in any modalities you're doing practically. And it easy to learn working with subconscious mind, because we all naturally doing it. We do it when we going to the bed, when we waking up, then we are in our alpha ways in subconscious mind. We need to find our inner strengths, and we need to unleash it. We need to give it back that power which had. It's got hidden, it got small and gray and dull somewhere. But if we will let it go to show us what is actually power of it, when we let it show us how big and glowing and beautiful and colorful it is, then we can reconnect with that, and that inner feeling change, and that inner feeling in that moment change immediately and permanently. And that's what I find out, that recovery from childhood trauma doesn't has to be decades, doesn't has to be a long term, but we can actually recover just in the few weeks or months if we know what we're looking for. And there is interesting concept question from Charlotte about what is the difference between acute trauma and complex trauma, and they affect differently. No, actually, when we will look at how is created trauma, we will find out that acute trauma is usually created on some beliefs we had previously than that trauma happened. Yeah, because trauma is a reaction on the event which happened, and our reaction is based on our settings before that happened. Yeah, so for example, I have one client which was the man, and he struggled with PTSD after almost dying his wife in the if the birth of the child, and he gets so upset about that, and he has nightmares and flashbacks, and we was very angry. And when we actually look at that, that reaction was because he believed that he's supposed to save her, that he's supposed to be the one who provided that support, who will that is his fault, that because he that's have the very strong positive belief actually before that he needs to take care of her, and he felt helpless in that moment. So when we release that and he get to that understanding that he did everything he could and he was there for her, then that was just disappear. It was like next day he was calm and no any symptoms anymore. And even his wife then called me and thanked me because she got his husband back. So difference between complex trauma is that we in complex trauma there are several layers, and we are disconnected from our functional parts. So most of people who have childhood trauma are not connected with their self-love. They don't know how it's supposed to look like. They are not aware how they're supposed to take care of themselves. So even when they go to coaching and we will say them, take care of yourself, they actually don't know what is supposed to mean, how they're supposed to do that. Yeah. So symptoms of childhood trauma are vary, and then from not knowing who you really are, from outburst of the anger, of looking as bipolar, so be sometimes very happy and chippy, and other time very depressed and not knowing what to do with yourself. Procrastination, often symptoms ADHD, uh, insomnia, flashbacks, freezing, panic attacks, public struggle with confidence, struggle with public speaking, go ending in toxic relationships, and then also all um, unhealthy coping mechanism for childhood trauma, which is drug abuse, alcohol abuse, and all type of unhealthy food relation. If it's the anorexia, bulimia, overeating, binging, um, night eating. So all these things. So we have a lot of labels from on the psychology level. We would have a lot of labels on anxiety, generalized anxiety. We would have bipolar, BPD, disassociation, all that. But that all together, it's all just different trauma responses, which mind choose the one of them, and because it's four of them, we are jumping between them, or we have prevalent in one of them. So this that knowledge about like how actually trauma is created and how it's affecting us, and how even, like, for example, Holly was speaking about that when you need to reconnect ourselves with the decisions and be able to decide for us in present moment and stop actually reacting from that past. That's actually requiring to work with subconscious mind, because pushing it through the conscious mind, it's take very long time, it's very hard, and it's very painful, or can be painful. And sometimes it's impossible to do that with childhood trauma. There is very often that what we call numbness, and that's about that how we suppressed all that emotions, how we suppress that anger, we shovel away some the self-love, we cover all that emotions, we don't want to feel them, they are so painful then we also cannot feel joy, we cannot feel happiness and excitement. So we cannot find motivation to do things. We try and we stop and we try and we stop because that motivation not coming really from deep inside. And what I try to do now is I'm trying to on one side I'm working with people with complex PTSD and their different manifestations, but also I'm doing the course for people because I find out that understanding of complex PTSD is lacking between therapists and coaches in the way that don't understand how it's actually all created, how it's working on that deepest levels of the mind, how we can with some easy techniques overcome numbness, how we can reconnect the parts which we need to, and how we can really speed up that recovery process. Because we brought up the next generation of traumatized children, because when we are traumatized we often traumatize our children if we don't want to, because like typical example is like when the women get angry on their children and don't know why they're just going from them, it's because they are not in themselves, they are not in their power, and they create other generation of traumatized children, women which staying with the partners because they don't feel strong enough to leave them, and brought up children in toxic relationship. That's another, millions of people growing up in childhood trauma. So for me it's really important to empower everybody, because everybody in their part of work, even if they working as coaches or therapists in people in the businesses which take care of their employees and their colleagues in the way to understand that, for example, workaholism, it's also sign of childhood trauma, and that now pandemic caused big outburst of that, because it's take off that one of the very strong coping mechanism, which is resilience and routine, and how we get off that routine, how we will switch off, and home working and everything stuff. There is a huge amount now people who struggling, and employers see it, so it's affecting the results of the businesses. And people sometimes who was effective and was doing things always on the time, and that now they struggling get out of the bed and do things, because that mechanism of suppression of what's happened to them as children, it's now taking off, and it's just going out, and it's just blowing out. So I'm doing the course which is calling complex PTSD blueprint, and that's going to the deep details on how it is all created, and also, but it's very practical. It's about like what we can do by ourselves, or respectively with other people. It can be applied in the therapeutic and coaching and mentoring and corporate settings. So that's if you will be interested in that, you can find me on Facebook. Most of people find me on Facebook as Barb Varclova, and I have the program Trauma Response Reprogramming, which is a program which I'm doing with the people for recovery from trauma in 3 months, and it's in really for me passion, because it took me very long time to recover. It took me time to find all layers of my own trauma. It took me time to recover my body from uh, everything which was happening in my life and develop physical manifestation on it. That's a lot of people probably also will speak about that, but everything which happened in our body, like and we now know that many things which predominantly women, for example, suffering like fibromyalgia or multiple sclerosis are reversible. They are we can with the working with the mind to change them. They are based on their trauma responses, or rheumatoid arthritis, migraines, skin problems, joints problems. So it's really, for me it's really a passion to help other people to can speed up that process for others. Yeah, because we don't have to be worried. There is million of people who need help. So even if be working shorter time with people. We will have plenty of people waiting in the queue to be helped. So I would invite you, everybody, for join one of my free master classes. Sometimes I'm doing, or also I have available some ebooks for about strategies how to work with trauma. But I would just want to really encourage everybody. When I look on the people, like today is like so amazing selection, not just the speakers but also those who came and watched. That I would want to encourage everybody to look to the more information how actually trauma affecting our lives, maybe how affected yours, and move forward to help more people. So thank you for giving me the space. I see Melinda coming on, so now I know what to do.
Thank you so much, Bastit, for letting us know about the presence trauma and encouraging us to know more about this topic. So, we have a question from our audience. Here is the question. So, what are the long term consequences of childhood trauma on individuals' mental health?
Childhood. Can you read it one more time? I'm sorry.
What are the long term consequences of childhood trauma on individuals' mental health?
Yeah. So on the mental health, the childhood trauma will show up as in it could be different symptoms that we can see. We can see it as depression, that people are not motivated in the life. They feel that they don't deserve, that it's not enough, and it's not available for them. We can see anxiety and panic attacks because they're suppressed anger and the living in the high alert, which I call the rabbit syndrome. They are always looking what's happening, and they don't trust themselves. They are disconnected from their power to protect themselves. They don't feel safe in the world, so they would have panic attacks. It can be nightmares or night terrors when they have or wide range of sleeping issues, insomnia, um, heavy sleeping, or struggle to wake up in the morning. It can be anger, ongoing or outbursts of the anger. And so the practically, if you will look on a majority of the mental health issues which we're dealing in now in society, the most of them, or practically all of them, are a result of the childhood trauma.
Thank you, Basmit, for the beautiful presentation today. I personally believe that to get relief from mental trauma, I think we need to practice yoga or meditation to get out of that, to get good sleep on time.
Oh, I will agree with you on that, but sometimes in the people are in high alert in childhood trauma, they cannot meditate. It's just irritate them so much because the mind is just so alerted and going on and on and on and on. It's trying to suppress all that things and trying to keep them safe. That calming the mind for them, it's impossible task in that moment. But when they release that, when we switch off that high alert, which is possible, a lot of people believe that it's not, but it's actually possible. We can go and switch off that high alert. Then they will realize that they can meditate and they can enjoy meditation and yoga, which are for sure very useful tools for keeping in good mental health.
Thank you, Bob Smith, for letting us know more information about this. Thank you so much for joining this event and sharing about mental trauma and getting how to get out of that. So it was really a beautiful presentation today. So looking forward to hear more sessions for our future conferences. So let's join
Okay.
another speaker and
Okay.
show some love. Our next speaker is Jessica Lapsia. Please join our next speaker session.